So I've got this guy, which is what I'm tasting at the moment, which is your 2020 Riviera.
Is that the 2020?
Yes,
okay.
2020.
You know, every year when we put the Secateurs Chenin together, it's made from many different vineyards and components, and we do done for many years a lot of skin contact carbonic stuff that we'll add to the Secateurs Chenin, you know, as just another component, along with the stuff that's in concrete and in tank and in vats and different size vats, etc., just to add. And our Canadian agent from Quebec, you know, like that French speaking part, the guys that want to be independent, he tasted it, and he said, oh, it's really amazing, you know, can I bottle him just a little bit? So I bottled, you know, like 212 packs for him, or 180 or 212 packs, and it just took off, you know, it sold, and next year we made a bit more. So now we've just made a little bit more every year, but it's from one vineyard here down in the farm called the Riviera, or the River Block. But it's not near a river. It's like more like it's not a river, it's like a freaking dry what's a sluit in English? A sluit, like a furrow, like a dry ditch, ditch.
Yeah.
But we call it the river. Once. Yeah, there was water once, like in the prehistoric times, but we call it the River Block, you know. And so we just call this block Riviera. It just sounds really fancy, you know. It just takes you to another place. So that's the Riviera.
Takes you to the south of France.
Ben, it's marketing, bro. It's marketing.
Yep. It's got this lovely sort of almost, I know you said it's got skin contact. It's almost like a bit of a cliche to say, you know, an orange wine that tastes like bergamot and clementine and all these really beautiful sort of juicy, mouth-watering sort of citrus fruits. But it really does, and it's got really nice structure and like a little bit of grip, but loads of freshness. It's great. This is a straight Chenin, isn't it, for the 2020?
That's straight Chenin with a little bit of Semillon.
Did you do it in a similar way? Is it carbonic with everything popped in? Or?
That is carbonic and destemmed.
Nice.
Destemmed on skins. Yeah. And then obviously incorporating the pressed juice as well. We just incorporate the pressed juice into everything, you know. It just adds that grippiness and that kind of sappiness. So there's and you know, we don't add sulfur to it either. The little bit of sulfur is produced during fermentation, usually between like 8 and 15 parts total is produced during fermentation, and then with bottling we'll add another 10 parts, you know. So just to keep it, just to keep the fruit.
But that's a very small amount as well. Like that's tiny.
No, it's a tiny amount. It's a tiny amount, and just to keep the fruit and not sort of close the mouth with too much sulfur. So that's it. That's what I tell people anyway. That's what it sounds like. But
well, by the time it's got to me in London, it still tastes pretty fresh and delicious. So you're doing something right. Yeah.
No, well, that's the main thing, you know. That's the main thing. And so we bottle this wine also just, you know, after it's done full malolactic fermentation. It's been on the lees for 12 months. We want it to be completely stable. I don't want like any fucking surprises in bottle later, you know. I don't want.
You don't want it to be a pet nat by the time I get it.
Yeah, exactly. We'll make a pet nat, but we don't want that one to be a pet nat, you know.
You'll make a deliberate pet nat, not an accidental pet nat.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I think it's something interesting. I mean, it's not, you know, Ben, you obviously got a lot more experience with these wines. I mean, it's not completely left field. It's just you know, it's clean. It's no dodgy things going on. It's a good, well farmed vineyards. That's the main thing. Just without any sulfates, you know.
It's the kind of wine though that, again, because I worked in restaurants for years, and you know, sometimes orange wines kind of freak people out a little bit, or just the idea of having a grippy white, a richer, fuller white. It's almost like it's like an orange wine gateway drug. Like you can taste this and be like, wow, this is super cool. Like it's not too, it's really approachable. It's not scary or anything. It's really beautifully well made. It's still interesting and still like really well made. And it will just make people kind of open their eyes and minds to this style a lot more. And then kind of, you know, before you know it, in 6 months' time, they'll be shooting Gravner and all sorts.
Yeah, because I mean, you often need that, you know, when you arrive at a new town. You know, arrive in a new town, how do you meet people? You don't go to the pub. Here in South Africa, you go to the municipal swimming pool. You know, everybody hangs out there. It's fucking hot. And if there's water in the pool, it's a bonus. But that's how you meet people. But when you when you go to the municipal swimming pool for the first time, you don't climb up on the high diving board and rip off your shirt and throw it down to the crowd and do triple somersaults like into the water. You go and grab an ice cream and you go sit in the shallow end, just your feet in the water, and you watch the people. So this is like easing into that kind of community, you know.
Yeah, it's the beginning. It's like the way into a big adventure where you'll meet some interesting wines and drink some great things. But yeah, it's really lovely to have wines like this, because it's sometimes hard to find orange wine that's not kind of like throwing you in at the deep end, which I love, but that's because I've been drinking orange wine for like 6 years. So
I mean, a Grosvenor takes you on a completely different journey, man. This is completely can't compare.
That's further down the line. This is where you start.
Exact.
That's brilliant.
And we are happy to be that stepping stone.
Yeah,
because I'm comfortable with that, you know.
But it's important as well, because, you know, the wine industry, we always want it to be as accessible as possible to everyone. And, you know, making wines like this that are really accessible, but use those interesting techniques and then make people open their mind and want to explore more is just as important as the wines that they'll find like at the other end of it, that once they've gone down the rabbit hole. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's really important to be able to have those kinds of wines.